When it comes to the JJ Redick LeBron James podcast, what this podcast was sold as is quote-unquote pure basketball talk. But in less than 3 episodes, they've gone from breaking down pick and roll coverages, drop coverages, to now being full-on defend LeBron's legacy mode. As in their latest episode, both LeBron and Redick agreed the 2011 Heat were not a super team.
I feel like in the NBA, the phrase super team or the term super team is a little bit of a misnomer, because you can have a big three, right? You still need 4 or 5 ancillary role players
Absolutely.
who star in their role and then complement the stars.
No question about it.
So, stopping it right there, the phrase super team somehow being a misnomer for the Heat, I really do not buy. As looking at them getting LeBron, getting Bosh, already having Wade, everyone knew at that point the Heat were indeed a super team. If that super team label was inaccurate, it was a misnomer, why would you do this weeks before the season started?
Not 2, not 3, not 4, not 5, not 6, not 7.
If you really weren't a super team back then, you weren't so overpowered. Why would you go on stage already declaring yourself as an NBA dynasty? To state the obvious, when you have 3 players, 2 of which are top 5, and then 1 guy who's top 10, top 15-ish, that team by default is a super team. And in terms of championship hopes, in 2011, they were unquestioned the title favorites. As looking at D-Wade in 2010, 5th in scoring, 4th in steals, 10th in assists, 5th in MVP voting, 1st team All-NBA, and All-Defensive 2nd team. Chris Bosh in Toronto, 24 points, 10 boards on 51% shooting, 9th in overall scoring, and 6th in rebounds. The only player in the NBA top 10 in both those categories. When you pair those 2 guys with LeBron James, everyone's championship hopes for the next season go out the window.
Obviously, my first year in Miami, we had a big 3. And everyone said it's a super team this, super team that. But we had to build our team around all minimum guys, which was still okay, but we didn't fill out the complimentary guys enough. Yeah, we had Rio, we had Udonis, but we didn't have enough as far as enough complimentary guys to actually make it all work. And we still made it to the finals. And we still probably should have won the finals, but I still give credit to you. Listen, it is what it is.
LeBron James right here, lying through his teeth and making numerous excuses. And how he started out this segment saying, the media, fans were saying, super team, super team, super team. What he's implying is that actually they really weren't. And that right there is peak LeBron James. If this guy truly is the greatest of all time, the best ever, can carry any roster, why are D-Wade and Chris Bosh not enough help? Do you also need Pau Gasol, Chris Paul, hey, maybe even Melo? Do you need that much help? If you're truly that guy, the self-proclaimed chosen one, why do you need everything to be perfect to win a single championship? And LeBron's last line in that clip was indeed the most egregious.
But we didn't have enough as far as enough complimentary guys to actually make it all.
Saying the 2011 Heat didn't have enough, when in the Eastern Conference, they went 4-1, 4-1, 4-1 versus everybody. That's a load of crap. And the NBA Finals, Game 4, they were up 2-1 and in the 4th quarter, up by 9 points. This team was less than a quarter away from being up 3-1 in the NBA Finals. Don't turn around 10 years later and say this Heat team, well, they didn't have enough, the roster wasn't completely overloaded, all I had was Wade and Chris Bosh, and that was it. And if you're going to blame one player in this series why the Heat absolutely collapsed, LeBron James has to bear that burden. As in Game 4 versus Dallas, the iconic 8-point explosion, where in the 4th quarter, with the Heat team still up, still winning, LeBron had 0 points on one shot with 2 turnovers. In Game 4 of the NBA Finals, up 2-1, LeBron in that quarter was outscored by Mike Miller, Haslam, D-Wade, Bosh, Dirk, Tyson Chandler, and Jason Terry. And despite that, Miami almost won that game. Game 5 almost identical. A very close game down to the wire, but in the fourth quarter, LeBron James just did not show up. 2 points, 1 of 4 shooting, playing the entire fourth quarter, and once again outscored by 7 players, this time including JJ Barea. If LeBron even half shows up, heck, maybe 25% shows up, the Heat win those games, win the series, running away. The Heat losing this series wasn't because of their role players or the lack of depth. Why they lost is LeBron in the fourth quarters went MIA. I mean, look at the fourth quarter stats, they're absolutely embarrassing. Dirk Nowitzki, 10 points per game on 51% shooting. Dwayne Wade, 7 points per game, 55% shooting. Jason Terry, 5 points per game. Chris Bosh, 3.8. Then Haslam, 3.0. Mario Chalmers, 3.0. And LeBron James, also 3.0. LeBron this series in the fourth quarters was worse than Haslam and Mario Chalmers, those so-called role players he blames 10 years later for the Heat losing this series.
We still made it to the finals, and we still probably should have won the finals, but I still give credit. Listen, it is what it is. You win and you lose, and we lost. Just know Dallas was fucking good, and they hit a stride at the right time. Dirk was unbelievable. But my second year, we was able to grab some complementary players and role players that really just, I'm talking about superstars in their roles.
So LeBron right here once again, pretty sneaky. As looking at the 2012 Heat, LeBron said they won the championship because of the role players and the supporting cast. What does that imply? That in 2011 they lost the championship because of the role players and the supporting cast. When in reality, why they lost was LeBron James folded and disappeared in the fourth quarters. And one thing I have noticed LeBron James discussing his team's losses, we is his favorite word.
But we still made it to the finals. We didn't have enough, and we lost.
Now, that's LeBron James when his team loses. Now, when LeBron wins, it goes from we to I.
That one right there made me the greatest player of all time.
That's what I felt.
Reasons. I was super ecstatic. And then after I stopped, I was like, that one right there made you the greatest player of all time. In that fashion, I was like, you did something special.
That right there in a nutshell is LeBron James. His team loses, it's his teammates' fault, the supporting cast, they weren't good enough. He wins, he gets all the glory, it's all on him, and because of his performance. And to go back to our earlier point, the Heat in 2011 were up 2-1 in the NBA Finals. Blaming your role players is an absolute garbage move as a teammate. For the perfect contrast, look at Michael Jordan in 1998. In that year's finals, his roster, Scottie Pippen, 15 points per game, 41% shooting. Kukoc, 15 points per game. Ron Harper, Luke Longley, at about 5 points per game. Steve Kerr, 4, and Dennis Rodman coming off the bench. Compare that to the 2011 Heat. D-Wade, 27 points per game. Chris Bosh, 19. Mario Chalmers, 12. Udonis, barely under 7. And then Mike Bibby, just under 4. When it came to LeBron's supporting cast in 2011, on average, 74.5 points on 44.4% shooting. Looking at MJ's supporting cast, 54.5 points on 43.2% shooting. And if you want to add more context, Scottie in 98 had a bad back, was diminished, Rodman was 37, and the Bulls' overall roster was the oldest team in the NBA. Did Jordan make excuses, blame his teammates, or the role players? Of course not. What he did was score nearly 40% of his team's points in that series, which till this day is an NBA Finals record. Even looking at 97, in terms of talent, production in the NBA Finals, compare to the 2011 Heat. Jordan's Bulls team, 55.5 points, nearly 20 points less than LeBron's Heat in 2011. The fact Michael Jordan 97 had one teammate in double figures, that being Scotty, and a host of role players, and still won the championship. Speaks volumes to him as a player and how great he could carry a team on the biggest stage.
You know, and obviously we were healthier. You know, Kyrie goes down in the finals and, you know, busted kneecap, and Kev obviously separated shoulder in year one. But you're absolutely right. The complementary guys are ultimately the ones that will help you win the championship for sure.
Yeah,
and classified as a real super team.
Right.
So I hope you guys caught that right there, as LeBron James defines a real super team as superstar players, a Kyrie, a Love, and himself, but also great depth. Again, what's he saying? That the 2011 Heat retroactively were not a super team or a legit super team in his view. If you were alive at that point, cognizant of basketball, the Heat having 3 players who were all top 15 players in the Eastern Conference, they were the shoo-ins to make the finals. And then versus Dallas, who was the oldest team in the NBA, the Heat going into that series were supposed to mop them and run them off the court. When looking at basketball, specifically pro basketball, unlike baseball, unlike football, it is driven by stars and impacted by them heavily. A superstar's overall impact on offense and defense can change a game, a series, even a season. And yes, role players are important and they can be timely in certain spots. But at the end of the day, the superstar player, the A1 alpha, that's the guy you ride with and your championship hopes depend on. If they show up, you have a legit shot. They don't, you have absolutely no chance.
Spo is the reason why we were a better team and our team was more assembled properly. That summer, he went to Oregon and hung out with Chip Kelly.
So that right there is our last clip, and I want to throw that in there at the very end. As one of the big-time narratives of the 2010s, even early 2020s, is LeBron James not once had a great coach around him. And of course, Eric Spoelstra now, in hindsight, to a lot of LeBron fans regarded as a great coach. But in the moment, 2013-2014, Spoelstra was crapped on routinely by the media. And looking back at LeBron James, when it comes to his stint in Miami, this guy goes out of his way to revise history and change the narrative. I mean, just this summer, he said in 2010-2011, he didn't need the Heat to be who he was. The absolute gall to say that, when coming to Miami, you couldn't beat Boston, had 0 championships, couldn't sniff a ring, but then with the Heat, won 2 titles, actually underachieved, and then 10 years later come back and say, well, actually, didn't need those guys that much, I was already a great player, my legacy was sealed, and also on top, the Heat in 2011 weren't a super team. This right here is controlling the narrative to the max. And like I've said time and time again, LeBron James is his own worst enemy. Whether it be podcasts, press conferences, or even on Twitter, this dude always either embarrasses himself, has a bad take, or contradicts claims he's made earlier. So that right there is the end of the video. As always, thank you guys for watching, hope you enjoyed it. I'll see you next time.